We don't need old men like you dragging us down, she said, flipping her hair like firing me was just a formality. I stood there nodding once and walked out of Vanessa Harper's office without saying a word. No outburst, no begging, just quiet dignity. My name is Stanley Row. I'm 59 years old, and until that morning, I was the operations manager at Harper Machinery, a company I helped run for the last 18 years. I didn't ask for titles or applause. I kept the machines running, the teams trained, the contracts fulfilled. When her father, Charles Harper, started this business from a garage, I was the man he trusted to build it into a $30 million operation. But none of that mattered the day his daughter took over. I packed 18 years of my life into a single cardboard box. And as I walked out, the younger staff, the ones I trained, mentored, protected, couldn't even look me in the eye. But Vanessa didn't check my contract. One clause. One very expensive clause. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, let me ask you this. Have you ever been replaced just because you were too experienced, too steady, too old to fit someone else's idea of fresh perspective? If you've ever felt discarded after years of loyalty, this story is for you. Leave a comment if you've ever been in Stanley's shoes, and subscribe to Revenge with Max, because some lessons deserve to be learned the hard way. I didn't grow up dreaming of managing a factory. My father walked out when I was 11, and my mother raised 3 boys on a secretary's salary. I learned early that showing up, working hard, and keeping your word were more than just virtues. They were survival skills. By the time I turned 41, I had 20 years of hands-on experience, 2 layoffs under my belt, and a community college degree in mechanical engineering. That's when I met Charles Harper. Charles wasn't flashy. He was a practical man, the kind who believed in handshakes, second chances, and machines that didn't lie. He'd started Harper Machinery in his garage with 1 lathe and a dream. By the time I walked into his office for my interview, he was running one of the largest industrial equipment suppliers in the Midwest credentials. Don't build machines, he told me. Men with sense and skill do. He hired me on the spot. Within 2 years, I was promoted to operations manager. Not because I asked for it, but because I got results. I restructured the production floor, implemented quality controls that cut defect rates by 30%, trained a generation of workers, many of whom were teenagers when they started. They grew into shift leads, engineers, family men. 18 years, no major safety violations, no missed shipments, no excuses. Charles treated me like more than just an employee. When my wife Linda got sick, he adjusted my schedule so I could take her to chemo. When she passed, he stood in the back of the church beside my son and daughter. Never said much, but he didn't have to. His actions spoke louder than most men's words. That's why it stung when I saw the updated org chart 3 months ago. Vanessa Harper listed at the top. She'd always been around in passing, but never involved in the business. After 2 years in Miami and a business degree, she came back talking about market disruption and digital transformation. I caught Charles wincing during her presentations. She suggested outsourcing core components, gutting quality control to streamline costs. He never corrected her in public. He just shook his head when she wasn't looking and quietly fixed what she broke. She needs to learn, he told me once, leaning on the doorframe of my office. Some lessons don't come from books, but I could see it wearing on him. The man who used to walk the floor every morning now lingered in his office longer. His eyes tired, his voice slower. 3 months ago, he called me in and said he was stepping down, heart trouble. He said I wasn't convinced. She promised me she'd keep the core team intact. He said, handing me a printed chart. The experience you bring is what makes this place work, but he wouldn't look me in the eye when he said it. And my gut told me that was the beginning of the end. Still, I stayed. I showed up early, stayed late. Just like I always had, because Harper Machinery wasn't just a job, it was my life's work. Until that morning, Vanessa sat across the desk like she was discussing a budget item, not someone's life. We're restructuring, she said, modernizing. You understand? No, I didn't. But I didn't argue. I cleared out my desk, placed my framed photo of Linda and the kids into a box, and walked out without a word. 18 years and not a single thank you. But what Vanessa didn't know, what she didn't even think to check, was that buried in my contract, written in plain legalese, was a clause her father insisted on when he hired me. If I was terminated without documented cause, I was entitled to 24 months of severance at full salary. Charles called it insurance. I called it trust. Vanessa never saw it coming. The morning after I was let go, I sat at my kitchen table with a fresh pot of coffee, the kind Linda used to make before her treatments. Sunlight poured across the contract I'd laid flat, every page marked and highlighted by Harold Preston, my old friend and lawyer who'd once helped me sort out probate after Linda passed. He traced his finger along the paragraph. Section 12, paragraph 3. In the event of termination without documented cause, he read aloud, the employee shall receive severance equal to 24 months of current salary. He looked up. It's airtight. Stan Charles made sure of that. I nodded, but I didn't smile. It wasn't about the money. It was about what that clause stood for. Recognition that experience mattered, that loyalty counted for something. Around noon, my phone rang. Caller ID, Charles Harper. I let it ring once. Then twice, I almost didn't answer. Almost, but 18 years of respect don't vanish overnight. His voice sounded thin-strained. Stanley, what the hell happened yesterday? Ask your daughter, I said, my tone flat. She said the company needed modernization. There was silence on the line, not hesitation, regret. She told me you were resistant to change, he said finally. Said you were undermining her authority. I didn't respond because we both knew that wasn't true. I warned her about the contracts, Charles muttered. Told her to check before making any moves. You said she promised to keep the team intact. She said she cleaned house, he admitted. You, Thomas, Jennifer, anyone over 50. I clenched my jaw. Thomas had designed the hydraulic systems that powered our top clients. Jennifer ran our QC lab like it was her own kingdom. Both irreplaceable. That the direction you wanted Charles clearing out. The people who built the foundation you handed her. You know it's not, he said quietly. But I gave her control. I can't take it back. In the background, I heard her voice sharp, impatient. I've got to go, he said, then hung up. I stared at the silent phone, then back down at the contract. Vanessa thought she'd erased my legacy in a single meeting. She didn't realize I'd been preparing for this moment for years. I called Thomas first, then Jennifer. Then 5 other veterans who'd gotten the same treatment. Some were shocked, others furious. All of them scared for their futures. I told each one the same thing. Take a breath, check your contracts, call Harold. Then I made another call to Douglas Clean. Doug owned Precision Parts, a rival company across town that had been trying to poach me for over a decade. You still interested in that conversation, I asked him. Doug chuckled on the other end. I've got an office with your name on it. 3 days later, I sat across from Vanessa and the company's legal counsel, a young man named Justin who looked fresh out of law school. Harold was beside me. Briefcase opened, my contract in plain view. This is ridiculous, Vanessa scoffed. We're moving in a new direction. That's cause enough. Harold didn't flinch. He tapped the highlighted clause. Termination without cause. He read, as defined in Appendix C, requires severance equal to 24 months' salary, approximately $320,000. Justin flipped nervously through a thin folder. Miss Harper, he said, the definition of cause here is specific performance issues, violations, criminal acts. He was resistant to change. Vanessa snapped. That's insubordination. Where's the documentation? Harold asked, warnings. Write-ups, anything? Justin flipped another page. Found nothing. Vanessa leaned back, arms crossed. Fine, we'll pay a few months severance, 6 max. Harold closed his briefcase. Then we'll proceed with legal action. Discovery should be interesting, especially the part where you terminated every employee over 50. Justin's face paled. Vanessa didn't blink. You won't find another job, Stanley. Not at your age, I stayed silent, because revenge didn't require shouting. It required precision and patience. After the meeting, I didn't feel triumphant. Vanessa's offer was insulting, but what stung more wasn't the number, it was the look on her face. Smug, unbothered. Like she truly believed that wiping out 2 decades of contribution only cost 6 months of hush money. She didn't know it yet, but she'd started a fire she couldn't contain. That night I sat on my porch watching the maple tree. Linda and I planted 26 years ago, sway gently in the wind. We'd nursed it through lightning strikes of fungus, even a tornado warning. We patched it up year after year, just like we'd done with our marriage, our kids, our lives, and now it stood strong. That tree had more resilience in one branch than Vanessa had in her whole boardroom. The next morning I made calls. Not just to Thomas and Jennifer, but to every senior person Vanessa had axed in the last 30 days. People like Ken from logistics, Mariah from procurement, even Janelle in HR, who'd quietly left after refusing to process the terminations without documentation. Some were still in shock, others already job hunting. But I could hear it in their voices. They weren't just ready for justice. They were starving for it. Take a breath, I told them all. Check your contracts, talk to Harold. Then I called Doug again. This time we weren't talking about me joining his company. We were talking about building something new. A specialized division, I said. Custom hydraulic systems, high margin, low volume. Exactly the work Vanessa says isn't worth the time. Doug didn't even hesitate. Let's do it. By the end of the week, I had lunch with Thomas at a diner halfway between our homes. We sat in the corner booth, just two old engineers and a pile of plans. Harold got me a year's severance, he said, stirring his coffee. Not as good as yours, but better than nothing. But they want me to sign an NDA. I raised an eyebrow. 5 years, he continued. Can't talk about proprietary designs. Processes, basically. Can't use my own work. You gonna sign it? He hesitated. Got a granddaughter starting college next year. Not many options. I slid a business card across the table. Douglas Clean Precision Parts. He's looking for a consultant. No NDA required. Nothing proprietary, just advising. Thomas picked up the card slowly. What's going on, Stan? This isn't like you. I looked him in the eye. I'm not here to get even. I'm here to build something better. His brow furrowed. You're partnering with Doug, head of a new division. I said, custom hydraulics, cornerstone precision. Thomas blinked. The custom work that was supposed to be Harper's future. Not anymore. Vanessa's selling off the machines, liquidating assets. Thomas leaned back. That's over $2 million in equipment. At auction prices, maybe 30 cents on the dollar? His face darkened. She's stripping it, turning legacy into cash. I nodded. And guess who's been buying property in Miami? He ran a hand over his face. Does Charles know? I shook my head. He thinks she's preserving the company. He doesn't see what she's doing behind the scenes. We sat there for a long moment, both of us staring past the coffee cups and salt shakers, seeing something neither of us wanted to say aloud. This wasn't just about job cuts. This was about erasing the foundation we built. What are you going to do? Thomas asked finally. I looked down at the plans between us. Build something with soul, I said. Where experience isn't a liability, where the people who built the house don't get kicked out when it's time to repaint. And just like that, the line had been crossed. There was no going back. Harper Machinery had chosen its future. So had I. We didn't build cornerstone precision in a boardroom. We built it in back booths of diners, on legal pads at kitchen tables, through handshakes made over toolboxes and coffee. Within 3 weeks of getting fired, I had my feet planted in a gutted-out warehouse on the east side of Indianapolis. Doug's old distribution space, cold cement floors, peeling paint, and possibility humming in the silence. This place used to move pallet jacks, Doug said. Now it'll move futures. I smiled. Let's build something that lasts. We called it cornerstone because that's what the old-timers used to say. When laying foundation, you build from the corners out. Thomas came on board first, then Jennifer, then Jason, a brilliant CNC programmer who quit Harper the moment Vanessa slashed his department's budget. The more she streamlined, the more top talent walked out and into our hands. We didn't have office chairs. We had folding stools. We didn't have a website. We had calluses, trust, and 30 years of know-how between us. Meanwhile, Jennifer, who'd stayed at Harper just long enough to feed us information, texted me a photo one afternoon, a production delay report, 3 major clients, missed deadlines, quality issues, supplier complaints. The cracks were spreading. Doug leaned over my desk reading the memo. It's happening, he said, brain drain. They thought the systems were the secret. I said, turns out it was the people. 2 days later, we got a call from Midwest Manufacturing, one of Harper's oldest clients. Their purchasing manager wanted to talk. We scheduled a meeting. We didn't poach. We just told the truth. We'd be operational in 60 days, specialized, reliable, and run by the same people who'd built their best machines. By week 5, I stood in the new warehouse with Doug watching the first equipment arrive. Drill presses, custom jigs. even a few refurbished machines we salvaged from Harper's liquidation auctions. She didn't even know we were buying them, didn't recognize our holding company's name on the bidding sheet. That afternoon, Charles called. His voice was lower than I'd ever heard it. "I know what you're doing, Stanley," he said. "I'm not hiding it. I didn't call to ask you to stop." That made me pause. "I'm calling to ask for your help," he said. To save what's left, my first instinct was silence. Then I asked, "What kind of help?" Vanessa's been selling off assets, gutting departments. The board's alarmed, so am I. But I gave her power. I can't just take back. Then why come to me? Because you're the only one who knows the bones of the company. The only one who could build a way forward? He paused, and because I should have listened to you. I thought of the first time Charles walked me across that factory floor, back when I still had grease in my hands and grief in my chest. "What are you asking?" "Come to my house tonight. 7 sharp. The board's meeting, and they want to discuss options, including leadership changes." I stood at the window of Cornerstone watching our small crew calibrate the machines. "I'll be there," I said finally, "but I'm not promising anything." "Fair enough," he replied. "And Stanley, yeah, thanks for still taking my calls." That night I stood in Charles's living room staring at faces I'd known for years, men and women who'd once toasted promotions and balanced budgets on the backs of our work. They didn't look confident anymore. They looked nervous. The numbers were bad. Vanessa's vision had driven the company into a 37% revenue drop, with 3 key accounts threatening to pull out. They asked me what I'd do. I laid it out. Merge with Cornerstone. Absorb Harper's custom division. Keep the legacy. Ditch the ego. Some of them bristled until Charles raised a hand. "I built Harper Machinery for the long haul," he said. "Not for my daughter's resume. I vote in favor of the merger." There was silence, then one by one, hands rose. When I left that room, I wasn't the same man who'd been fired 6 weeks earlier. I was building again, on my terms. 6 months after Vanessa fired me, I stood in the back of Harper Machinery's main conference room. The quarterly all-hands meeting was in full swing. Vanessa at the head of the table, flanked by her executive team. Most of them under 35, all of them visibly nervous. The plan was simple. Let her present first. Let her try to explain the 37% revenue drop. Let her explain why 3 of our oldest clients had walked away, why production delays were now the norm, why 2/3 of the custom hydraulics team had vanished without warning. I watched quietly as she clicked through slide after slide, blaming market conditions, global supply chain, legacy inefficiencies, anything but herself. But then she saw me. Her hand froze on the remote. "What is he doing here?" she demanded, pointing Charles sitting quietly near the board. Members leaned in and nodded to the chairman. The chairman stood. "Vanessa," he said, his voice steady. "The board has reached a decision regarding the company's leadership." Her face went white. You can't be serious. This is a setup." The chairman turned toward me. "Mr. Row, would you like to explain the new arrangement?" I stepped forward, a manila folder in my hand, one that Harold Preston had prepared months ago. Only this time it wasn't a severance demand, it was a merger agreement. "Effective this morning," I said, "Harper Machinery has approved a full strategic merger with Cornerstone Precision." I paused. "Cornerstone will absorb Harper's custom hydraulics division. The rest of the company will continue under new executive leadership." The door opened behind me. Thomas Baldwin stepped in, dressed in a gray sport coat, in calm confidence. "I'll be heading engineering and product development," he said, nodding to the board. Vanessa stared, disbelief hardening into fury. "This is absurd. I'm the majority shareholder." Charles rose, slow but deliberate. "You hold 20%, he said. "I've retained 51, and I voted in favor of the merger." Silence fell. I slid the agreement across the table. Vanessa flipped through the papers, hands trembling. This is theft. You're stealing my company." "No," I said calmly. "This is business." She stood sharply. "You'll regret this." I met her eyes steady. "You're right about one thing," I told her. "It isn't over." She stormed out without another word. A week later, the severance I'd originally been denied hit my account, $320, no $9 minus taxes. I didn't celebrate. I didn't buy a boat or take a trip to Europe. I went back to work because it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding something worth believing in. We expanded the Cornerstone facility and moved Harper's surviving crew into a refurbished wing, rehired key technicians, upgraded the tooling line, and most importantly, restored the respect that had been stripped from that floor. Clients returned quietly confidently. Quality scores improved. Turnaround times dropped. 3 new patents were filed within 90 days. One afternoon, Charles stood beside me on the observation platform overlooking the shop floor. His cane tapped lightly against the railing. "Best numbers we've had in 5 years," he said, holding a printed report. I nodded. Below us, Thomas was sketching a design tweak for a client order. Jason was training 2 new programmers. Jennifer, still in her lab coat, was inspecting a set of brass cylinders with the kind of focus that made investors nervous and engineers proud. "Vanessa called yesterday," Charles said almost casually. "From Miami?" I raised an eyebrow. "She's launching a consulting firm, asked if I'd invest. And I told her to come back to Indy first. Learn the business. The right way." "The way you did." I didn't ask what she said. I didn't have to. Charles smiled faintly. She hung up, then after a pause. "But she called again this morning, asked if the offer still stood." I looked out over the floor, the hum of machines, the laughter from the tool bench, the subtle rhythm of work done well. "She'll have to earn it," I said quietly. Charles nodded. "No shortcuts this time." Vanessa never apologized, and that was fine. Some people learn, some resist, some disappear. But I didn't build Cornerstone to teach her a lesson. I built it because the people who carried the weight for so long deserved better. We weren't just rebuilding a business, we were restoring pride. One blueprint, one weld, one day at a time. 1 year after the merger, I stood in the exact spot where Vanessa had once fired me. Harper's old executive conference room. Only this time, the name on the wall behind me wasn't Harper Machinery, it was Cornerstone Hydraulics. Same walls, new soul. The company had changed, not just in name, but in how it breathed. The engineers had their own input in production planning. Now the line leads had voting rights and process adjustments. Even the apprentices attended quarterly reviews, not to speak, but to listen to learn, because respect didn't just flow downward anymore. It circulated. Charles still visited from time to time, slower now but lighter. He'd sit in the corner with a cup of coffee and just watch. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. One afternoon, he handed me a folded note. Just one line written in his clean, old-fashioned handwriting. "You kept the promise I didn't know I was making." I never asked what he meant. I think I already knew Vanessa. She stayed in Miami. The consulting firm made headlines for 6 months, then quietly disappeared. Word is she's working for someone else now, a startup in logistics middle management. Still wearing heels too high for the floors she never walked. She'll be fine, or she won't. Either way, I stopped keeping score a long time ago, because the real win wasn't in the merger. It wasn't even in the severance. It was in walking the floor again and hearing the hum return, the steady, stubborn rhythm of work done right. No flash, no slogans, just competence, grit, care. And if I've learned anything after all these years, it's this. You don't have to destroy something to prove your worth. You just have to build something better. From the ground up, brick by brick, corner to cornerstone. What did you think of Stanley's story? Have you ever been replaced, overlooked, or pushed aside only to rise again on your own terms? Tell us in the comments, if you were in Stanley's shoes, would you have taken the same path? Don't forget to subscribe to Revenge with Max so you never miss a powerful new karma story every single day.